Welcome, everybody, to A New Perspective. I am Tim Sutton, and I appreciate everybody joining us. I am if you haven't heard before, a law enforcement officer in the state of Virginia and do a lot of work with individuals with disabilities, whether it be autism, other intellectual disabilities, Alzheimer's, forms of dementia. I'm still currently a law enforcement officer, and that's a special population, or one of the populations I work very much with. And the purpose of our show that we're doing here is to highlight people who have or are still living the disability journey, have family members that they're caring for, taking care of. And again, I always stress to people, when I was sworn as a police officer 33 years ago, I was sworn to protect all populations, not any particular population. And I appreciate you being here. We've got a great topic, great person visiting with us tonight. And I think we're going to have some great conversation. This gentleman, I met him a few years ago. He locally has a radio show, and it's heard all over the place. But he does this thing called Blue Friday, where he recognizes a local law enforcement officer here in the Richmond, Virginia area, and brings them in and lets the public know what they're doing, the amazing things they're doing. I did have that opportunity to be chosen for my work with families with disabilities. Individuals that are dealing with stuff, caregivers, and those parents. And we had a very good conversation, and we've run across each other on and off again. He's here local, so I'll run across him every once in a while. But I also had the opportunity to be on his show last December. We had a Christmas event for individuals who have disabilities here in the Richmond area. And I was lucky enough to have him bring me on his show to talk about what we were doing. But he's got a law enforcement link, he's got a political link, and he's also got a disability link. So he has all these different aspects that are involved in his life. And he just wanted to come. He was gracious enough to come and talk to me. And my idea was to get him on here and let him talk about his journey in the disability world. He has a daughter who has a disability, and he is very vocal about caring for her and taking care of her, and wants the best things for her. But I'd just like to introduce everybody to Mr. Jeff Katz.
Well, Tim, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. I know you have your hands full, and you're usually busy doing something, but I appreciate you taking the time to come see me.
Well,
out there.
The invitation is most welcomed. I appreciate everything that you've been doing in our community. It's always nice when somebody who is not necessarily a mom or a dad of someone with a disability jumps in and says they want to help. And so that's
right.
A pretty cool thing.
Yeah. And I get a lot of people ask me why. And I was just in my job. I was placed in a situation to help families deal with the wandering and elopement, where the children get away, or mom or dad with Alzheimer's get away, where I would come out and we would actually put a transmitter on the individual. And if they went missing, instead of having to spend days and days and days searching for somebody, me and a team of officers can actually come out there and find them, hopefully very quick, usually within 30 minutes, and get them home safe. But no, I just, I appreciate you being here. And I did want to ask, you said you had around 5 years experience in law enforcement up in Philadelphia years ago. What brought you to the Blue Fridays? What started that?
Well, I've been at News Radio WRVA in Central Virginia. It's almost 10 years now. It's amazing to me to think that it's been that long. But a couple of years back, there just seemed to be this nonstop attack on law enforcement. You couldn't go anywhere, read anything, look at anything, listen to anything without hearing somebody attack and demean law enforcement officers. And I just thought to myself, look, I did the job a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away for a couple of minutes, but but I know that it's a profession that's comprised of really good men and women. And I just did not think that law enforcement officers were getting a fair shake. And I went to my program director at the radio station. I said, I'd really love once a month, maybe we highlight a local law enforcement officer. And he said, absolutely, have at it. And, I'm sorry to tell you that since you've done it, we've really expanded the prize package. I think when I had you on the air, you got a hearty handshake and a really deep thank you so much, and then sent you on your way. And now we're able to provide some really nice gifts once a month.
Well, you got to realize, and having done the job, sometimes it's rare to get just that.
Yeah.
We might get a free cup of coffee or somebody buy us a meal, but it's rare to get the praise or the thank yous. Luckily, where I work, the area I work, it's interesting because we've brought in a lot of Richmond officers who, last summer they had a rough time and they end up retiring and coming out, and they're riding around working for my agency, and they're riding around saying, people are waving at us.
Right.
And I said, yeah, and they're using all five fingers.
That's exactly.
And they said, it's just amazing that people actually like us.
Yeah.
And the problem is just what's seen on the media and the stuff I do. You might get a brief highlight somewhere here or there, but the media, for the most part, wants to show that negative aspect.
Yeah, they really do. And I think one of the things that I found, Tim, is that I've seen so many people who are in the media who, quite frankly, and I don't want to be nasty or particularly pejorative, but they wouldn't be able to do the job. They would run away in fear, and they don't quite fully understand this servant's heart that law enforcement officers have. And so that's where this all came from. I said I'd really love to be able to shine a spotlight on a police officer, a deputy sheriff, a state trooper, a special agent from the federal government.
Right.
And I'm just so happy. When it first started, I really had to. It was almost like pulling teeth to get agencies to cooperate, because they're like, well, what's the real agenda here? What's the angle on this? And I would tell them, they go like, we don't believe you.
Well, suspicious. We're suspicious of so much.
Very suspicious. Yeah. And I'm really happy to say at this point, I've got more nominees than I can do on a regular basis. And I think it speaks volumes, frankly, about the caliber of men and women who are doing the job, certainly here in the Commonwealth of Virginia anyway.
Right. Do you think, had you not chosen the path of law enforcement for those few years, do you think you would still be headed in that direction to recognize law enforcement? Or do you think that is what had the major impact on you to realize, there's some awesome people out there doing this job? I might not be in it, but I did it. I know what it's all about. You think you would be doing this had you not had that previous experience?
I'd like to think that I would be, but I don't know. Right. I don't know. It's been so long since I put on a uniform or pinned on a badge. But one of the things that I've maintained for, well, frankly, ever since I did the job, I've been a volunteer peer counselor for law enforcement officers. And this was long before anybody had this idea that cops should talk to other cops. And we started a little group called Cops Helping Cops. And it was about as disorganized as it could possibly be. It was literally just a couple of us who sat around, and I think there was a lot of war storytelling, but there were also some real situations and there were real exchanges. And now, of course, it's a whole profession unto itself almost. Yeah. And I'm really happy about that. But I've kept my hand in that, and I still will. I don't know if I want to use the term counsel because that's a professional term, but I'll chat with and talk with and spend as much time as somebody needs if they call and go, you know what, I'm just having a really tough time. And until you've driven a cruiser around, you don't necessarily get it. Right.
But no, I mean, it doesn't have to be a professional atmosphere or environment. It's just somebody that you're willing to listen to somebody and let them share what's going on. And even if you didn't have that background law enforcement, just having that person there, because the general public does not see what we see on a daily basis.
No.
And they're blown away. I mean, having to lay down in the middle of the road on the double yellow line because the wife just pulled up and her husband's on a motorcycle up underneath that car.
That's right.
And just laying on the ground praying with her. It's just it's what you should do, but it's what, in my case, it's what you do. And there's so many other people doing the exact same thing I'm doing. However, that's not going to make the news.
No,
that's not going to be on the news. And that's the frustrating part. But no, so you did that. And I told you I was going to bring it up. New England.
Yep.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit on that.
Okay. Well, I grew up watching pro wrestling with my dad, and
say it right.
Well, now you got to remember now in Philadelphia we said wrestling because it was a very well respected sport.
There you go.
And but my dad and I would spend every Saturday afternoon. We would be down in our basement, and part of my job, Tim, was I had to hold the UHF rabbit ears to make sure that we could get the signal. Yeah. And we weren't allowed to watch it upstairs on the big TV because my mom would not have that. Because somebody might come by and see us doing that, and it would be horrible. And,
that'd be terrible.
We were down there, and we just had a wonderful bonding experience and a great time doing it. And we eventually would go to the matches at the old Philadelphia Arena in West Philadelphia.
Wow! And
it didn't dawn on me at that time that the curfew was 11 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And for some way, somehow, everything always ended right at 11 o'clock. It was always on time. There was never any overtime, no sudden death. I mean, things worked out. But we would get home and my mom would be waiting up. We wouldn't get home till midnight. And my mom would make us strip down on the front step because this was long before the days of no smoking rules.
Right.
And we smelled like ashtrays, my father and I, and neither one of us. Number one, I was a little kid and he didn't smoke. But fast forward a few years, and there's a guy by the name of Larry Sharp. And Larry Sharp worked for Vince McMahon for many years, pretty boy Larry Sharp. And Larry did something that had never been done before. He started a pro wrestling school. Now, there had always been training, of course, because you're not going to get in that ring unless you know what you're doing. But Larry just said, look, all bets are off. I'm telling you, you pay me X number of dollars, I'm going to teach you how to be a pro wrestler. And he had guys like King Kong Bundy was one of his guys, Bam Bam Bigelow. There was huge stars that trained with Larry. And I went there as I was a radio guy. Right. And I thought it'd be really cool to talk to him on the air. And he said, well, while you're here, let's give it a tryout. And I said, okay. And he was trying to explain to me the proper way to fall and do this and do that. And I just screwed it up 6 ways to Sunday. And he said, yeah, you're not really very good at this. So you're going to be a talker. And so that's what I was. I was a bad guy manager. And so I got to go out and insult people and poke them a little bit and just get everybody riled up. And it was great fun. That's
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, there seemed to be so many facets to you throughout your life, and you ended up in radio, and I mean you are well known all over the place. And again, I'm appreciative that you're taking time to spend time with me. But let's talk about your daughter, Julia.
Sure.
Living with a daughter with disability. When that was diagnosed, or was that was discovered, how did you take it?
Well, it was a difficult time. Heidi and I had our first son, Harry, and Harry was always the overachiever. He hit his milestones before he was supposed to hit the milestones. And, Harry was our first. So it was almost like an owner's manual, like what to expect when you're expecting. And, you have a toddler. Congratulations. He's going to do this and that. So Harry was always ahead of the curve with everything. And Harry now, by the way, is at Stanford, and all I get for tuition, I don't even get a free sweatshirt, but I still send the tuition. But Harry did everything just when he was supposed to do it or before.
Right.
And then Julia came along, And Julia didn't do anything. Julia didn't do anything when she was supposed to. And we had friends and neighbors who said, "Oh, she's just on her own schedule. It'll be fine. It'll all work out." And we kind of told ourselves that for a while, but it was clear there was something very different about Julia. And Heidi was giving Julia a bath one time, and she said, "Come take a look at this." And there was this tiny little hole, like right above her tush. I said, "Huh, that's kind of weird. And not a big gaping hole, just this tiny little thing." And we said, "Well, all right, we'll have to ask the pediatrician about it." And it's something called spina bifida occulta. And it's, as the pediatrician told us, it's the good kind of spina bifida. Said, "Oh, well, fantastic. All right. Explain this to me, doc." And he said, "Well, that's not really going to be a big issue, and that'll eventually either fill in or we could, that's not, but it is just an indication that things are a little different with Julia." And then while we were there, he said, "Oh, and how is she doing developmentally?" And we said, "Well, she's not doing any of this stuff." And he looked at her hair, and this was something I had never realized. He said to us, "Well, come take a look at her hair." He said, "You see how it starts in the center of her head?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Yours doesn't, and your wife's doesn't, and mine doesn't. And folks who are developing typically, your hair is slightly off center."
Oh, wow.
So if your hair is center, there's something going on. And then he said, "And take a look at Julia's teeth." And her teeth were just slightly separated, and her nose was a little. And so all these little things we started seeing, and we put them together. And that began this journey where Julia in 19 years, Tim, has seen more doctors than I have in 50. And she's been poked and prodded and x-rayed and this and that and the rest of it. And it just, the thing that I hope people know is that, Julia, like every other kid, is a kid and not a collection of symptoms, not a diagnosis one way or the other. But that was just kind of the beginning with this adventure with Julia. And she's a sweet girl, but there are some things that she doesn't do, and she's never going to do. Julia just turned 19. She doesn't speak. She's never going to speak. She learned to walk a couple of years ago, very, very late in the process. And it's kind of a Frankenstein-y, not the most steady gait. But Julia will shower you with kisses and hugs, and she loves music and water. And she's a marvelous little girl. But she's also a 19-year-old young lady, which poses some very bizarre sorts of things when you're her dad. There's some dads who right about now are reminding their daughters, "Hey, if he comes over again, I will be sitting here cleaning a gun. Just let him know that."
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes.
And I'm never going to have that situation with Julia.
Right. Well, I tell you, just listening to you speak, I think the key word, and it speaks volumes for you, you said you noticed something different. You didn't say you noticed something wrong. You noticed something different. And I think that's the key. And I tell a lot of families, I know sometimes with a disability, at first it's a kick in the gut sometimes. But there's so much to these kids with disabilities. There's so much to these adults with disabilities. And I've shared it so many times, I know a lot of times with autism and other issues, it's frustrating. But so many of things, your daughter's picking up on things. She knows that love you have for her. And she's probably picking up on things that, the average neurotypical individual is just going to walk by and doesn't pick up. Some like autism, they're absorbing so much sensory stuff. And I tell parents a lot of times, I wonder if they actually get it. And maybe we're the ones with the special need. You
I
know,
think that could very well be true in a lot of cases. And I think most parents, certainly parents that I've spoken to through the years, Tim, we all go through this process. It's part dabda, right? It's part mourning in some cases where, oh my gosh, why is this happening to me? Why is it happening to her? What did I do? Why are we
right,
going through this? And you can give up at that point, in which case everybody loses,
right,
especially your child. You can at sometimes just say, look, I got to suck it up and we're going to deal with this and we'll cry later. And make no mistake, there's plenty of crying.
right,
There's been a lot of crying. Um, and as a father, uh, there's certain things with my two boys. I shower them with kisses and hugs,
right.
not just because I love them, because it embarrasses them,
Oh
and
yeah, of
I
course.
live to embarrass them.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
what dads do. That's what dads do.
exactly. And I would love to think that someday I'm going to embarrass Julia at her wedding by dancing with her,
Right, right,
but that's not
right.
going to happen. And
Well, and,
nonetheless, uh, she's given a lot to other people, and this is the thing that people don't necessarily get. I say people like that a lot of us just
yeah,
don't get. Uh, my job is to communicate, right? I mean, at least in
right,
theory, I should know what to say, when to say it, how to say it. This is what I do. And Julia's never spoken a word. And I'm going to tell you right now, Julia has touched more people than I have ever been able to communicate with. Julia,
right,
without ever saying a word, she can giggle and everybody in the
right,
room is going to feel good. And of course, the converse, if she's crying, it's just the worst. It's just
right.
it's an unbelievable sadness. But she almost always has got a pretty good smile on her face, and um, you got to keep track because she knows where the cookies are kept, and
Right,
she will
right.
do anything to get a cookie or two.
Yeah, that's what I say. She's speaking volumes, but she's not even using words.
No,
That's and what I wanted to read, if you go check Jeff Katz and his website and all, he wrote a letter to his daughter Julia, and I just the last paragraph kind of hit me when I was reading it, and if you don't mind, I'd like to read that last paragraph.
sure.
It's Miss Katz. Your 18 trips around the sun have served to make this world a better place. You've made me grateful for the warm sun and the cool breezes. You've shown me just how wonderful it is to get a cookie for a treat. You've taught this professional communicator that it is possible to say "I love you" without ever uttering a syllable, and that's what she's doing. She's talking, she's communicating, and she's saying so much without saying anything. And it's ironic because that's your job. Your job is communicating and talking using those words. But I'd say she probably, I have not met her, and I would love to have the opportunity to meet her. But she's probably saying just about as much every single day as you are, but just in a different way.
Yeah, I think she's saying more. And I think in her own way, she says it far better than I ever could.
Right.
She just has certainly given me an appreciation for what is really important. And
Right.
I think that she's been able to share that with a lot of people that, uh, look, people spend their lives looking at things and stuff and how many
Right.
things can I get? And then I need more stuff and I need a place to put the stuff. And Julia loves the breeze. She loves a cookie.
Right.
She loves hearing a song that she knows.
The
So
Beatles.
the Beatles, she loves the Beatles.
Love
Oh
the
my
Beatles.
gosh. And the early Beatles, by the way,
Oh yeah.
not the Yellow Submarine
Right.
psychedelic stuff, but she loves them.
Well, what would you say has been you and your wife your biggest struggle as far as the disability is concerned?
Well, without being overly graphic, Julia's 19 and she wears diapers. And so Heidi and we joke about it. I'm not sure if anybody else will get the
Yeah.
joke, but we talk about how we are in many ways we're a slave to Julia's bowels.
Right.
If
Right.
Julia pooped during the day, this is a big victory, Tim. This
Right.
means that we can make plans or do something.
Right.
Um, I mean, and there are physical challenges. Julia is not Uh, she's not a little tiny kid. She's not a big kid, but she's solid, and
Right.
I'm not getting any younger. And despite what Heidi thinks, she's not getting any younger. And so sometimes there's just the physicality
Right.
of maneuvering a 19-year-old who doesn't necessarily want to be
Right.
maneuvered in that direction. That's
Wow.
a challenge. And I think one of the funny things, Heidi and I laugh all the time, because you have parents who will say things like, "Oh my gosh!" First, you'll get the folks say, "Oh, I am so sorry about Julia." And it's like, well, I'm okay. You don't have to be sorry.
Right.
There's no reason to apologize. You didn't do anything, number one.
Right.
And number two, I'm pretty fond of the kid. I kind of
Yeah.
like her. But then you've got the flip side where you have people going, "Oh my gosh, you and Heidi, you're like saints." I was like, no, also not true.
Right.
We are mom and dad to Julia the same way that we're mom and dad to Harry and to Joe. Some of the services are delivered in a slightly different way,
Right.
but this is our role, and we don't shirk those responsibilities. And frankly, to be honest, you can complain about some of them, and that's okay. It is okay to
Yeah.
say, "Gosh, we really would like to do this, and we can't because we didn't arrange ahead of time, or we don't have a sitter." And you know what? It's just real life,
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's a big challenge for especially parents who are new to having a child with
Right.
disabilities. Oh my gosh, I can't be angry. I can't be upset. Of course you can be upset.
Yeah.
If your child knocked something over, whether they meant to or not, it's still a mess you have to clean up. And
Right.
you're entitled to be upset. Now, you're not entitled to do something nasty or mean to that child,
Right.
but of course you're allowed to be upset. And the same way, you sure as heck ought to celebrate every achievement and every little milestone. When they told us Julia was never going to roll over, and then
Right.
she rolled over, and then they said, "Oh, Julia's never going to crawl," and she started crawling, and we weren't even in the room because we had gotten to the point of, well, we could just leave her.
Yeah.
Well, my boys came in like they had won the lottery or something. "Oh my God, Julia's crawling, and we all stood around. I thought we could cancel cable at that point. We're just going to watch Julia crawl. This was great. So you celebrate those victories, and you deal with the other parts too, because she's a person. She is a real, live, honest to goodness person with great things about her and some things that may bug you.
Right. And, a friend of mine, Bob Schaefer, would always say in these situations, you can take what you're given and you can be bitter, or you can make yourself better or make the situation better.
Yeah.
And it takes a whole lot of effort to be bitter, but it takes a little less effort to try to make it better and realize how, and in your situation, there are other people dealing with loved ones with disabilities that may be different than Julia's and even more labor intensive.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
but it's nice that you go out, you talk about it, you share it, and you put her out there and you let people know the life you live, the life, of hers, because she's just as important to you as your other kids.
Absolutely.
And you make sure people know it. And I, commend you for that. And, when I first met you, I did not know any of this story. I came to your studio and did the show, and you seemed to take an interest in some of what I was doing. I was like, oh, okay, well, I did not even know your story, your backstory. And it has really evolved as I've learned more about you and talked with you. And I'm glad we have become friends because, I'm here should you need anything ever. I saw you shared the thing we're going to do. I'm working with some moms here locally and some other people developing a nonprofit called A Better Understanding. And we are going to have an event in Richmond at the Diamond for the Flying Squirrels, April 15th. We're selling tickets, $10. And we're just inviting anybody, any families. You don't have to have a disability. Anybody can come. But we really want to pack that place and show our support for the families and caregivers and the individuals with disabilities. and let them know they matter. We want to have an event for them because
Absolutely.
so many things happen out there. You let me come on and talk about that Christmas party we had in December. We wanted an event for people with disabilities.
That's right.
A parade was going on that day, but a lot of times with autism and other issues, they have these sensory problems, and it's too loud, too noisy, too many people, too many moving parts.
Right.
And that's why we wanted to have this party and just have it specifically for those individuals. And we had sensory Santa Claus there, and through that whole thing, he refused to let us pay him at the end of the event. He was so moved and contacted me later asking if I would be willing to train 50 to 80 Santa Clauses on autism, intellectual disabilities. So, it's getting out there. And like I said, my uniform, my job has put me in places where typically I may have never been.
Right.
The close one year I got asked to speak at the closing ceremonies for the Special Olympics. And, if I wasn't doing the job I was doing, I probably would not have been asked, but the uniform has gotten me in places. And as long as I can go out and I can advocate for families and individuals dealing with disabilities, that's the one thing I want to do. I want to do. And no, I'm not affected by it personally. But I know so many people, and I see there's such a need, and to be able to just be one of the voices of many out there to try to raise awareness and let people know what's going on. That's all I'm trying to do. And luckily you've supported that and been a fan, and I'm a fan of yours as well. Well, I think I know what you'll say, but what would you say, I want to hear it coming from you, would be your number one accomplishment in your life?
Well, I'm pretty sure it would be Dad. I've done some very cool stuff.
Oh, I know.
And I've gotten to travel and do some neat things. And I am in my studio, which my wife refers to as the Plaque Shack, because I've got it. It's like, I don't know, all this stuff. It's like tribute to my insecurity and low self-esteem. But the reality is that the most important thing that I've ever done is to be a dad to my 3 kids. And I do tell my boys that I love each of my children the same, but I love Julia the most. And they've come to accept it. They're dealing with it. And I mean,
they'll be fine. They'll get over it.
I think so. They'll take a lap and walk it off at some point. But I think that's the most important thing and the best thing I've ever done.
Well, awesome. I think our 30 minutes is about up, but we covered a lot, and I'd love to have you back on the show at some point. There's a lot to discuss, and I am very appreciative of you. If anybody wants to reach out to you, hear you, what's your contact information, or where can they find you on the radio?
Sure. 3 to 6, Monday through Friday, News Radio WRVA in Central Virginia. It's 96.1 FM. It's 1140 AM. And I fill in for Glenn Beck and Todd Starnes around the country on a pretty regular basis. And my website is probably the best thing, thejeffkatzshow.com, thejeffkatzshow.com.
And I would encourage everybody to go and look you up and read about you. I mean, you've received so many awards and all, but again, like you said, number one is Dad, your dad. So, absolutely. Jeff, I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking. Hopefully we'll get you back here. And I just, God bless you. And thank you for all you're doing and all you're sharing and all you're helping people. And if I'm here, if you ever need anything, for everybody out there, it's Tim Sutton. This is A New Perspective. You can reach out to me. Email is aawareness12@yahoo.com. Please feel free to check me out on Facebook and LinkedIn and all these other social media platforms. And I just want to thank everybody for being here. I appreciate it. I appreciate Jeff. Look him up, learn more about him. He's a great guy, great friend. And I just want to thank everybody for watching. And Dad, thanks for watching. I love you. Take care.